got some great comic spec to get into right now. Some comic spec that we all love talking about, of course, and that is Uncanny or X-Men spec. I apologize, X-Men spec. And news that the mutants are coming into the MCU soon gives us a reason to start bringing up some characters that we want to start talking about. Now, some of these books that we're going to talk about, you guys, we get they are some major grails, but we just want to talk about those characters in general that, you know, might be some major spec plays on some of these characters. Even if you're not picking up their first appearances, they might be some things to look into for those characters. But starting off with an actually a pretty reasonable spec play right here in the old school X-Men 38 Phalanx Covenant storyline with who's this? Psych? Is that his name?
Sync.
I apologize. So let's get into this on the first character here.
Yeah, this is a list that I compiled of who I think that they might go with in some of the rumors that I've heard, who I think Marvel's going to name as the main team. Now, we all have an idea in our head of who our X-Men team is. You know, the older guys, the guys that are a little bit older than I am, they think Beast, Iceman, Cyclops, Jean Grey. That's the X-Men, Professor X. You know, I'm more of a Jean Grey side. You know, I'm more of the Gambit, Rogue, Jubilee, Wolverine. That's my team. But after that generation, this Sync guy is one of the most popular characters and one of everyone's favorite X-Men. Here's another thing. He's an African-American character. You got to start thinking about that when it comes to speculation. You got to start thinking about what the team is going to look like and what Marvel's going to try to put out in the field. And I think there's going to be multiple African-American characters. One of them's pretty obvious, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. But this character has the ability to steal and take. It's kind of like Rogue. He can take their powers for a specific time period. And he's one of the ones that they use. Like, and I mean, if they need, you know, Wolverine's powers for something on different missions and things like that, that's what they use. He's also the current love interest of Laura Kinney.
That's a big point. I
so that's
research on this. Yes.
This is one of the X-Men that you didn't know about, but he's been on a majority of the big teams. He's been in a lot of the big books over the last 10 years. As of last night, you could pick up a 9/8 and first appearance for $89 with like $12 shipping on eBay. These are one of those books I've talked about because we know what the Avengers first appearance. The guys in this room, we know what the Avengers first appearances cost before the movies came out, and now we know that you can't touch any of the first appearances for under $1,000, depending on grade, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why you got to start thinking about the speculation again, because this is what speculation is. It's all based on Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's what people spend their money on. So that's where you got to start thinking about, and you got to treat it a little bit like gambling. And I think this is one of those books that I don't think you're going to lose putting $100 down on a 9/8 copy with Sync.
Yeah. It's funny now that I think about it, I'm just starting to remember they have a first appearance of Sync in this one, and then the other Phalanx Covenant book, the first appearance of Blink. It's like, do you think that they thought about that? They're like, we should do this. We should just fuck with them and do this. That being said, I want to ask about Blink. What do you think about Blink? Do you think Blink is a character that they could bring back in? I know they tried to do something with her in that TV show that really never took off, but I always thought she was such a fan favorite character and had decent powers to bring in a movie thing. She's almost kind of like especially with the multiverse stuff that they're doing and the whole Exiles run that they had, which was such a multiverse heavy book. I'm surprised they never tried to do something with her.
Well, to be honest with you, I thought really hard about it was between Blink and the next character, which is being Jubilee.
Yes.
Because it's the thing. There's going to be an Asian character in this. And a lot of people do not realize this, but that's exactly what Jubilee is. She has the friendship with Wolverine. She's a young kid. She has a power that would make sense in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She has the vampire ties. I think that I would put a very high percentage on Jubilee being being in the movies. That's who I think is going to be the representation. And I've always loved the book, to be honest with you. It's been one of my all-time favorites. Jesus Christ, my screen just went black.
You're still good though. We still see you.
Yeah, we can still see you.
You can see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can see you.
And hear you.
Okay, this is weird. I'm trying to get back to.
Just keep talking.
Okay, no. Anyway, 246 is one of my all-time favorite books, to be honest with you, because she's one of those fun characters. She's always been, the way I just remember the way Wolverine looked out for her and during the Claremont run. You know what I mean? And I always thought that was unique, and they did a good job of portraying that in the X-Men cartoons. She was one of the big players. And I think that they're going to lean on a lot of that cartoon stuff too. I think they're going to look at that team, et cetera, and I think they're going to go with this. But this is another one of those books that you can get for relatively cheap. And if they go that direction with her, it could be a pretty good turnout. Just personal opinion.
Yeah. Another character that I think had a couple decent episodes, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. On that same cartoon was Sunspot, right? Sunspot, character, and that is next on our list. A great character and an old school goodie, and a tough book to find. This first appearance in the wild, right here.
Well, the thing about this book is if you look, Costa has been in. He's been an Avenger. He's one of the major players in all of the X books and has been for about the last 10 years. Again, his South American or Hispanic descent, I think that they're going to play up on that, and I think he's going to be a very major player. And like Bryan said, the Marvel graphic novels 4 is a fucking monster of a book. It really is. It's got multiple first appearances that people need to pay attention to. It kind of, depending on how you look at it, has the Magic first appearance. Wait, no. Is that the one where is that Ilya's first appearance, or which is the Storm book is the first one as hers as Magic, but what's the first one is Ilya Rasputin?
I always thought that I always liked her Magic number 1.
Number 1, yeah, I think that's the book to look for.
Yeah, but I like that New Mutants book also for that super tough to find 5th printing, the Adam Hughes cover, which is so hard to find, but. Sunspot is a great looking character too. He's got a great design on him, especially like this. I love this type of design. I love this look. I think that bringing him in the MCU cinematic universe, they could do some really cool stuff with this character, CG wise. So I love that type of idea when we're thinking of characters and people that might be good in the MCU and that type of stuff. So
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. There's a one-day show that happens quarterly in Atlanta, and there's this guy who puts out puts out probably 50 long boxes, all for half of them are for like $5 and the rest of them are for $2. And then if you buy enough, you'll drop it down from 5 to 3 or whatever. I found 3 of these first print Marvel graphic novel 4s last year in there.
Wow.
I was bugging out. I was like, this is crazy.
Wow, dude. Yeah.
Hey, Girl 18, like I said, if you want to fucking hoe on our page, you better show us some shit. We want DMs. We want to see what the fuck you're selling if you're hoeing on our page. We want to see the butthole. We want to see it all. It ain't no free advertising around here. Throw us some shit. Send it to Big Leg. He's going to fucking be the one that decides if you get on or not.
Let's go.
Well, next on the list, a character that I don't think one has any interest into Girl 18 at this point, and that is our good friend Bobby Drake, Iceman.
I think you know what I mean. I was going down the list of, like I said, political things. There's going to be a homosexual gay character, and he has been I went back and forth on this, and to be honest with you, I almost went Alpha Flight 106. Because North Star was technically the first character to make that splash in any comics, and it was a huge political statement, and it still is. I went back and forth on if they were going to go with North Star or if they were going to go with Bobby Drake, and I thought about it. And he's been in most of every X-Men, everything they've ever done. His powers really work on the big screen, and I just thought that that's where they're going to go instead of North Star. Granted, X-Men #1, 1963. We know how much that is. Not a fucking cheap book at all. It's technically unaffordable, but I had to. Unfortunately, this is who I think is going to be on the team and where they're going to go.
What about this book? Do you think that this book is worth looking into? And that's the book, of course, where Bobby comes out as gay. I know that like these type of books, you know, origin stories, second appearances, major story points don't really hold much value anymore, which is kind of weird compared to, of course, the first appearances. But maybe this might be something that you can pick up cheap, but there's a ton of them out there.
The problem is that even book Alpha Flight 106 isn't a popular. I mean, it's a $25 raw book, $100 9/8 book. You know what I mean? So, and if that story isn't the one that, you know, people have gravitated towards, I don't know if this is going to be something that people would follow. You could be onto something. That's just not my world to necessarily comment on. Yeah, as I just commented on it for 5 minutes, but you know.
Well, another young character that actually, before we get into that other young character, I definitely want to talk about another character. There's a couple other characters that come out of the X-Men world that are part of that big book, as we call it, virtually unattainable at this point. In that X-Men #1, but that is Cyclops, Scott Summers, who
he's going to be on there. You can't do an X-Men story without Scott Summers. Depending on whatever direction they go, he's going to be there. It's just he's Captain Krakoa. He's the X-Men leader. However you slice it. So
I always hated Cyclops. I thought he was the biggest pussy in the world for the longest time, and then once he started being with Emma Frost in the comics, everything changed. Like you could tell she brought out like the badass in Scott Summers.
All right, we got to talk about bring up when I'm done with this. Bring up. I want to talk about Emma Frost for about 2 minutes about something else with the chasm and that storyline, but. You know, and that's the thing is you'll obviously know where I'm going, where Bryan and I are going to go with this next. It's going to be the most important piece of the X-Men, and this is in my personal opinion, Jean Grey, aka Marvel Girl. She honestly, like, I think, you know, how a lot of people say that Iron Man, Captain America, that's the glue. I think that she's the glue to the X-Men. I don't think it's Professor X. I honest to God think it's Jean Grey. I saw some interesting casting rumors in the last couple of weeks about her. It's going to be interesting. I'm just going to let everybody know if she's not a natural redhead, I'm going to be pissed. But it is what it is.
Well,
and again, X-Men #1, fucking way out of most people's price range, but.
Do you think there's any play at all on the characters that they introduced where they brought in that other team from the different realities? There's any play? Yeah, do you think there's any play on those characters? I don't think so either.
I don't. You know, they were on the Champions at one point in time, and then they not retcon that, but I think that they switched back up. They've been invited to Krakoa at one point in time. Like there was some. I forgot what happened to him, to be 100% honest with you. But I thought that was just another horrible storyline.
That Jean Grey had her own little side story going on during the whole Krakoa stuff, if I remember correctly. And they tried to play her out as a big character, but it just doesn't seem like it's working. But yeah, it is what it is. The next character is, I think, a character that they've really tried to hit on before, and it just has never taken it off. But to me, I think it has the most, out of the main characters, it has the most, like, if it finally hits, this character is going to be, can be so huge, and that being Storm. I think Storm has been, she's just,
I think,
so badass.
I think Feige's going to hand the, honestly, I could see the whole storyline where she beats the shit out of Cyclops and takes over the X-Men lead early on in this. And I honestly think that she might be the centerpiece and the backbone of the whole thing. And I think she's the most, I think her and honestly Jean are the two most important pieces to this puzzle to make it work in the MCU. And I know what people are thinking, and I got a reasoning for where I'm going with this in a minute. But I actually thought Halle Berry did a really good job. I really did for what it was. Those movies were, if you look back on them, they were corny to an extent. But you look at the fucking times they were being made. You know, if you look at some of the casting and some of the awards and things like that, some of those cast members won on those X-Men movies. They weren't bad.
Yeah,
they really weren't.
I loved X-Men First Class. I thought it was excellent. I thought all the X-Men movies with McAvoy and what's his name as Magneto were great. The Apocalypse one was a little rough because of how they made Apocalypse look so stupid. But
he looked like the fucking villain from Power Rangers. He did. He looked like fucking what's his name? Vic Violet Vic or whatever his name was.
Stupid. It was bad. But the Days of Future Past was it's so underrated. I think people give that such a bad play because it didn't match the comic. I think that they couldn't really do it that way with what they had to play with, and I think they did such a great job at the whole thing where they switched what's her name to with Kitty Pryde and all that stuff. It was a great movie. They did a great job. I love the Sentinels in it and everything about them. I love how they merged. That was the first time where we had the two universes merge, and it worked so well. But yeah, I don't know.
She is, and the thing about it is, though, I honestly think she's the best written character currently going on in Marvel. They are doing her a huge. She's basically the region of Mars, which is the Queen King of the Mars that the mutants fucking terraformed, and the Krakoans and the Iraqians, all those things like that. They know that she is a bad bitch. She's whooped tons of people's asses. She ain't afraid of Iska the Unbeaten. I love her. She's honestly, she's probably my third favorite comic book character behind Damian and Logan Wolverine. Honestly, I'm sad that we're not going to get to see the T'Challa Storm angle that we could have saw on the big screen, and we may see it at some iteration of it. But God, I'd have loved to see that.
You guys do not sleep on the Sins of Sinister stuff. If you can pick up some of those variants for cheap, I think there's like 5 new characters that they're touting in that Sins of Sinister, and I know that Storm is going to be a big part of that. So, especially if you're a Storm fan, I wouldn't. When I say don't sleep on it, I'm not saying don't spec on it hard. I'm not saying spec on it hard, but it's worth a read and a pickup if you can find them cheap. I think that's going to be a cool little storyline. So that's
people aren't going to like this next one.
Well, the next one is also a first appearance in the first appearance of Storm. That being the giant size, which in all reality, you guys, is you can still pick these up for a decent price if you look, and they're attainable rather than the 63 X-Men. So, but yeah, this next character being Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner.
He was in my opinion the best character in the original trilogies. The way the way that the BAMP, everything worked. His relationship with Wolverine, his religious angle, Mystique being his mom. I just see him being another one of those unique characters that I think Marvel could make work really, really, really fucking good again.
Yeah.
Again, giant size X-Men, a too expensive book, but like I said, I'm just kind of going over what I think the team's going to look like and what direction they're going to go with this. And I love the character. He's doing some really cool stuff. Like I said, that some of the X books right now are the only thing saving comic books because there's no other books to read. They're all so shit, from Image to, other than main Batman, there's not a DC book that's honest to God worth reading. And outside of X-Men Red, and X-Force, there's not a lot great going on at Marvel either. But I really, that and the what is it? The
Strange Academy.
Strange Academy is good, but he's Kurt Nightcrawler is the main character in the book, Legionnaire's book.
Yeah.
And he's been coming out with this mutant religion, and it's been interesting. But anyway, I know we're taking up too much time. But
he's also a big character in Sins of Sinister, so keep a lookout for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. This next character is one I think it's hard not to love, especially after the whole Logan thing. A lot of people that wasn't into her before that definitely could love her afterwards. Such a great representation of Laura Kinney, aka X-23, killer character.
I heard a rumor from the same person who told me exactly what was going to happen in Black Panther 2. Told me that Deadpool is going to use Logan from the Fox universe. That there's going to be a multiverse situation, and they're going to bring him into the Hugh Jackman into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they're going to keep him dead at the end of the movie. So we've heard all these rumors about the different interviews and this and that. I think Marvel's going to pivot. I really do. I think they're going to pivot and do something that may be controversial and may be stupid, but I think they're going to go with Laura Kinney as the main Wolverine. Honest to God, do.
But they talked about bringing the same actress back, so it would have to be multiverse stuff because Logan is dead and she's a child. So how are you gonna? I mean, 5 years ago she's older. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's hard to. What's she gonna play like a 4-year-old? You know, how's the same actress gonna play a 4-year-old?
No, they're going to definitely. You're exactly right, Sean, and I think that's why it's so smart to have that Logan Fox character. It's the smartest play, and it gives. The send-off we all wanted.
He's my favorite. Logan's my favorite character. I mean, other than Damian, that's who I fell in love with. He's going to probably, but I just don't think Marvel's going to put it on a platter that easy for us. I don't, especially if you read the way they're pushing her in the main comic books more than they're pushing Logan right now in the X universe. They're pushing her on all the main X-Men teams instead of Logan, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if there's some foreshadowing going on, but if you look at a lot of the comics that are being written, they're definitely in communication with the movie team about certain things. You can change the looks of some characters have changed over the last couple years. So I just think that's the push that the writers and Marvel are wanting to go to use her. I could be off. Like I said, this is just my opinion, but I think Laura Kinney's going to be on the roster.
Yeah.
And I mean, NYX is that's one of the great modern comics. Great Quesada cover, very interesting storyline with her being a teenage prostitute, the whole 9 yards. It's been, a $400 book. It's been a $2,500 book. I'm glad to see it's coming back into that $1,100, $1,200 range for 9/8 because she's a fucking amazing character. I mean, it really is.
Yep. Great series too. All right. Next on the list, another great character, especially I love the design of her. I've always thought she had a great design, and that is Polaris.
And here's my reasoning for Polaris, because they're not going to – they fucked up the Scarlet Witch and the Quicksilver. I don't know how – especially after the fucking Wandaverse bullshit with bringing in the Quicksilver and then using him as – you remember that in the WandaVision?
Yep.
So they've washed those two characters. They're not going to be able to use them as mutants. We all know Magneto's going to show up at some point in time. I think that they're going to use Lorna as the Scarlet Witch type character. As if they use Magneto as the big bad, they may use Lorna as, the daughter evil sidekick that eventually comes over and turns into an X-Men. But I think that's where they're going to go. X-Men 49 is a little bit cheaper than X-Men 4, but I just don't see how the MCU can use Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in any mutant stuff, because I honest to God think that they burned them. So they're going to have to go with Lorna, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Magneto, that is the next character on the list. Maybe being the big bad. Do you think that they're going to go back with Magneto?
I don't know. I don't know. They may even have him as a hero. They may use some of the. They've had multiple iterations of him where he's joined the X-Men and kind of been that anti-hero. I'll fight with you guys, but as long as it has the mutants back, I could see him doing that again. But he's too He's too important of a character. It's like doing the Avengers and not having Captain America. You're going to have Professor X at some point in time. I don't think Professor X is going to be as cut and dry as everyone thinks. I really don't.
I'll be honest, man. I wish that they would do like you're saying, like they're going to do with Logan, and bring him in that same character. Every one of those movies still lines. I wish they would do the same thing with Magneto and bring in what's his name to play him again. He was better. Fassbender was the best.
Was so good,
dude. He was so great as Magneto. Bring him back. Even bring. I'd keep McAvoy as Professor X. I thought he did a great job. Bring those characters back. There's no reason. And if you don't bring those exact actors back, just recast them, but as the same storylines. Like, you know, do the multiverse thing where those people show up. Keep them going. They're great. Great storylines too. So, all right.
Now,
that being. Go ahead.
I think people are gonna argue with me on this one, and I'm okay with it, but I have a reason.
Yeah. Next being Forge.
You know what? There's gonna be a smart guy. There's always gonna be that guy that, you know, makes the jets and does shit like that. Who's been the main guy doing that for the last 25 years? It's been Beast. People fucking hate Beast as a character. Honest to God, there's not a Beast fan in the world. Never met one, and there's not one. They've written him shitty over the last 20 years. He's not a likable character. I think Forge, with being the Cheyenne Indian angle and kind of being the main gadget, you know, smart guy in the 90s during our era, I think they're going to throw a monkey wrench, and I think they're going to use Forge as the main, you know, mechanic, intelligent guy in that universe. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who they're using in the main comic right now is Forge. He's doing some crazy stuff with the Children of the Vault and some other things. So he had that relationship with Storm, and that's where I think they'll go with it. I mean, I think he makes sense. And like I said, they're going to try to use a diverse cast, and having him be the Native American, the Cheyenne, you know, ancestry. I think it makes sense.
And I like X-Men 184. It's such a underrated book. It's easy to pick up. It's
good
cheap.
book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So good stuff.
Now this is the final one. I've talked about representation the whole time. Vinny, I ain't forget about your homeboy. They've already announced the first mutant, boys. We heard it in the TV show. We heard it at the end credit scene with the fucking music. She is going to be an X-Men whether we like it or not. It sucks. I'm not a big fan of it because she's a fucking Inhuman. That's like the Bloods and the Crips. You don't mix. You can't switch over, but that's exactly what the MCU is trying to do. But with that music and the last scene talking about her having the mutant gene, and then that's exactly where Marvel's going with this, whether we like it or not. And she's going to be on the team in some capacity, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think Rogue and Gambit are going to be down the road. I think you got to realize that they're probably going to take this another 10-year phase. I think they're going to add a bunch of stuff. There's going to be some deaths. You know, I don't know if they're going to do Dark Phoenix. I hope they do a Sinister. I hope that's who they use because they haven't used Sinister as a villain yet. But I think that this is who my brain tells me is going to be on the original team. And it's going to be fun to see in 4 or 5 years how wrong I truly was.
Well, another interesting part about this is, you know, you're talking about Captain Marvel 17, the second print, maybe being the book to go pick up now because it has really dropped in value. I mean, you can pick up copies for pretty cheap out there. I mean, you know, if you keep an eye on it.
It should have dropped.
Yeah, it should have.
Yeah, it was too high.
Yeah, so, you know, be on the lookout.
Say that very often.
Yeah, it was going for like 5,500 or something at one point.
Yeah.
9.8.
Yeah,
crazy,
ridiculous value.
You know, and they can still salvage that character, in my opinion. But I don't know. I've talked about it. I'm not a fan of the way that they used Riri or the way that they used her. I thought that they may have done it a little too quickly.
Yeah, maybe.
No, and Josh is right. That's exactly what happened. But with the whole Fox situation, the whole 9 yards, they were literally making them turn her into an Inhuman with the whole Terrigen Mist bullshit at the end. But it doesn't matter. She's been an Inhuman. I don't want her in a fucking X-Men. I don't want her even fucking sitting on the bus with the X-Men.
Yeah. Well, the next one is a given too. That being Deadpool, Wade Wilson.
That's here. You know how like the Hulk's kind of a member of the Avengers, kind of does stuff. I just don't see. I know Ryan Reynolds said he's going to do one more movie. I think Disney's going to back the fucking truck up, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get 5 or 6 years with Ryan Reynolds. And I just don't see how they do big X movies without having him as doing cameos or a part of it. He was it all depends if they make him a mutant or not too, which is going to be very, very interesting.
Here's what I would love to see. I would love to see, and I bet you this would help them get him to sign up. They could say to him, because I bet you he's getting sick and tired of playing the funny shtick, right? At some point, if we could do the Uncanny X-Force team, the secret team, give Ryan Reynolds to do some more drama-based stuff as that character, let's do it.
That was the best Wade Wilson arc. If you remember, they were trying to kill the kid Apocalypse, and he was not fucking. He was like, "Hey, I've done some horrible shit. We're not going to kill this fucking kid." That was one of his, in my opinion, that was one of his best storylines that's ever been written. That whole run, the art on it, some of the variants, the Wolverine Domino stuff, fucking
both runs. Kid Apocalypse, the whole thing between Archangel and Psylocke, dude. That
was
crazy. The Phantom X stuff, the X-23 stuff, of course, the logo. The whole thing was great, man.
Something's weird's going on with Phantom X. I thought about Phantom X was a character that I thought makes a lot of sense. He's French, bring the European audience. Dude, he hasn't showed up in any of the new X books. He's not made an appearance on Krakoa yet. So he has not made any appearance in 4 years that I'm aware of. So they're not putting anything into the character. So I just don't know now that the MCU and everything's, syncing up. You would figure that he would, as popular as a character he had been at one point in time, you figured that they would have thrown him in some X book, at one of these X books in the last 3 years.
We all know that New Mutants 98 is just crazy right now. It's not as crazy as it was, a couple of years ago, but it's getting pretty damn close. Maybe a play on this is to go after that second appearance, that second X-Force book. Because not only does it have that Deadpool appearance in it, but it also has that Kane appearance in it, which there's a lot of rumors out there that they're going to play that route. They're going to bring that character through on the MCU as a bad guy for the movie with Logan and the whole Weapon X stuff. So if you can't afford the New Mutants 98, or you don't want to go, try and spec on it, maybe go look at some of those second appearance books. So very good stuff. I can't wait to continue to hear more about the X-Men stuff and more stuff that's coming down the road. We all love the X-Men. I don't see how you can't, especially people that are our age.
Hey, I got a secret spec for everyone on here. Everyone needs to legitimately look at buying X-Men Volume 2 188 from 2006. It's the first appearance of the Children of the Vault. That is where the whole X-Men storyline has been fucking leading and going towards. It's basically a group of subhumans that were created in this particle chamber. They're not humans and they're not mutants. They're a subspecies of humans. They are the most, if you've been reading what Forge's been going on the X-Men, they are the most powerful people in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. They will wipe through everything. And they've been trapped in this vault. They've had a storyline with Sync, Laura, and Cal. These guys right here, I'm telling you, they're in comic book wise. We've talked about the speculation is different, but this is one of those. This is one of those books, you guys. If you see for cheap, buy it and store it away, because this is where they're going with it right now. Forge just went back in because they went. There's 2 Laura Kinneys right now because Laura and a couple of the other mutants went into the vault on a mission. They said Laura died, so they resurrected Laura. Well, Forge went back into the vault and they found that she was alive. So there's 2 Laura Kinneys right now. But when they came back, they found that in the data, in the brainwaves, that there's some extra data, and Cerebro can't figure out what it is. They've literally, Caliban has been stuck in the vault for 100,000 years. Caliban's mutant power is to survive anything. They figured out that they experimented on Caliban and made it where they're able to upload their consciousness into a computer. So they're basically going to be able to escape from the vault at any issue And I mean, they talked about it like they can take out Thor, anybody. Like they're the most powerful people that they don't know about. They're talking about in the last X-Men, they're like, we need to get Reed Richards involved in this immediately and let people know what's going on. But this is a book you need to look into, in my opinion.
Another character you brought up was Emma Frost, to say that you wanted to just remind you about.
Yeah, Emma, you know, they're definitely going to use Emma at one point in time, and I'm 95% sure they're going to do something with Madeline Pryor to bring in Cable. You know, they've loved Cable as a character. Fox loved him. So I think that they're going to eventually do something with that. You know, if Jean dies in a Dark Phoenix saga, you know, the Madeline Pryor deal to bring Sinister in. I mean, there's a lot of different things. And I think all the characters we all love are going to eventually make it into the movies. I just think that they're going to do something. You know, they didn't necessarily go with the 1961 Avengers team. You know, they had Hawkeye, Black Widow, some other things. So I think they're going to do something similar with this team and mix and match from some different eras and, you know, different ethnicities, races, etc. And that's just kind of where my head's at with it.
All right. Nice little comic segment there, you guys.